Hello again, new book now, Olaudah Equiano, The Life of Olaudah Equiano. We talked about it briefly in class, but for those of you that missed it, today we talked about where Equiano is coming from, that this is an argument against the slave trade, and it was published in 1789, and this is the book that you'll be writing on. All you have to read for Wednesday is Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is divided into sections, as are all the chapters, and I will just take you section by section through here. First of all, notice that you have cliff notes up on the top that should help you just understand the various parts of the chapter and make it a little easier to get through it. Again, I understand that it's unfamiliar language and unfamiliar writing in some ways. Section 1 begins on page 9, goes through to page 10, and all it says is, I'm sorry I wrote this. I'm sorry, forgive me, I don't want you to think I'm vain, telling you my life story. I apologize. Very typically British and very typical of the time, just saying, you know, gee, I'm really sorry. That's what they like to say. Section 2, he tells us about Africa. And a couple of things to notice in this section. He tells us on the bottom of 10 about his father's marking, that he was scarred in a ritual manner. And he will talk later about his own body and whether his own body has been scarred, which it hasn't. The scarring, think of the scarring as writing of identity, physically writing on the body something that tells everybody who sees it who that individual is. And Equiano is somebody whose identity is going to shift over time and shifts throughout the story here, throughout the autobiography. And as it shifts, he's going to be very happy that he was not scarred, not marked in that way. He tells us about marriage customs as well in that section. Section 3 now. We are almost a nation of dancers, musicians, and poets. Every great event, etc., is celebrated in public dances. Okay. He says our manners are simple, our luxuries few. Think about how this fits into his argument against the slave trade. Why would you abolish the slave trade, having read this? He also says we don't drink liquor, we have some palm wine, but it's nothing too strong. So music, food, liquor, customs surrounding those areas of life. Section 4, he starts out with architecture. And he also talks about slavery in Africa. And understand that there was slavery in African societies, as there were in most societies in the time. And again, thinking about why is he telling us about African slavery if he's trying to argue against the slave trade? In what ways is African slavery different than Atlantic slavery? Section 5, our land is uncommonly rich and fruitful, produces all kinds of vegetables in great abundance. Again, what is he telling us about this society, these people, this life that would lead us to want to abolish the slave trade? He tells us some more about slavery in the West Indies in Section 5 here, and again comparing that to slavery in Africa. Chapter 6, Section 6 of Chapter 1, I should say. As to religion, the natives believe there is one creator of all things. Again, why is he telling us this about religion? He tells us in this section also, we practice circumcision like the Jews and made offerings and feasts on that occasion in the same manner as they did. Why? Why does he want us to equate his African origins with the Jews? And he's going to do that 2 more times. He does that further down on page 18. He does that later in the next section. Section 7, he gives us more of this idea of his people as being like Jews and living in a pastoral state. Again, why would he do this? He tells us a little bit now about a theory about the relationship between the Jews, the ancient Israelites, and the people of West Africa. All right. And I think that's it. Yep. The last section here, this end of section 7, he gives us some very direct arguments about slavery and about the relationship between Africans and white Europeans and slavery. And that's it. And that will get us on to chapter 2. Enjoy reading it. Take your time. Make plenty of notes in the margins so you can stay with it and keep focused on it. Alrighty, enjoy. I'll see you next time.